earlier this year, SRAM completely flipped the drivetrain conversation with its head with a radical new approach called that transmission. It was available in 3 premium tier levels right at the very top there, as you'd expect with a brand new technology. But God bless the filter down effect. Now, just 3 months later, SRAM are back and they've gone and brought the transmission to that budget-friendly, jack of all trades, super robust group set level GX. Now, the whole system, as we saw with the 3 models that came out earlier in the year of transmission, is only made possible if it's used with a UDH compatible hanger on the bike, which means there's hundreds and hundreds of bikes that you can use it on, but that's because it's all in the mounting. A couple of benefits there. It makes it extremely tough. It also fuses the hanger in with the cassette. It sits right up against there and it makes it extremely efficient, and also makes the setup extremely simple. So you've got precision shifting, it's not going to go anywhere, it takes away all those B-limit screws and everything else. A very, very smart system, but very, very simplistic and dynamically strong in how it holds together and actually performs out on the trails. Now, a couple of the really interesting things that we're seeing with the GX is it's actually got a slightly different design in the rear mech. Now, you'd expect that, being GX, it's going to have a little more beef on it, maybe a little bit more of a simplistic engineering approach to save a few bucks. But what they've actually done is they've changed the location of the battery. Now, the battery on the 3 models we saw earlier this year, similar to the AXS rear derailleurs of the past, where the battery sits on the back. With this new guy, the battery actually sits right there on top. So it's sandwiched between the 2 upper pieces of the derailleur, which means it keeps it out of the way, a little less vulnerable for being knocked off, I guess, as well. But interestingly, it also opens a kind of makes something possible to do with the e-bikes, which we'll talk on in a second in terms of another battery option. So we'll talk about that in a second. We can see it on this bike here. Now, the biggest way that the SRAM managed to save a few bucks and make the group set a little, I guess, budget friendly, and also where the most weight is added over those premium models, is the rear cassette. Now, the rear cassette is obviously the biggest piece of the puzzle. It's still 12 speed, the whole system's 12 by 1. We've got a 10-tooth ring all the way out to that big 52 here. Exactly the same specs in that sense as we're seeing on those premium models released earlier this year. We're also still getting the thick, thin teeth as well across the whole cassette, except that middle ring, which is the setup ring, which is the red ring there. Very, very smart bit of kit that indeed, and we talked about that a lot in our reviews on the original transmissions. But yeah, so essentially the difference in this guy, the GX version over the premium models, is that the rings here are pinned together. So it's just a bit more of a simplistic approach to the engineering and manufacturing. Saves a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it's got a little bit more material on it, but still very, very durable. So you're gonna get a lot of wear out of this, and that's really what GX represents. You just think of it similar to that sort of Shimano XT. You're buying something that's gonna be really tough and just last forever. So that's really what GX represents. Now, there's also a couple of different crankset options here. All alloy, there's no carbon on the new GX range. But yeah, so this is the standard dub compatible bottom bracket crank set, which we're seeing here. We've got the nice little bash rings, which we can be taken on and off as well, which kind of really rate. Now, like we alluded to before, GX is actually, so from what we've seen so far, GX is actually coming in 2 different specs. There's an e-bike version as well. Now, like all of the transmissions except the very top, they're fully recommended for e-bike use, and they actually encourage you to be able to change gears under loads, under full power, crank up and down the cassette. The new transmission is strong enough and crisp enough that the brand actually encourages it, stands back, no warranty problems there whatsoever. But a couple of really interesting things with the e-bike. You've got the new crank model here, which is very, very similar to these cranks in appearance, but we're assuming these are a little beefier. It does have e-bike written on there. But then also at the back here, now we talked before with the new GX trailer, same thing here, but we've actually got a different approach. Now, GX is all about wireless and electronic, whereas this guy has a cable, as you might see. Now, what this is an e-bike exclusive version. It allows the rear derailleur to be powered via cable to the bike's main battery. Now, this is a Trek, but basically there's a bunch of different brands of OEs that can spec this if they wish to. Trek obviously have. And what it does, essentially, it takes away the use of the regular access battery, which still fits in there, completely compatible. But then the whole transmission is then powered by the bike's battery. Now, the shifter is still completely wireless, so there is only one cable there. Interesting approach. maybe a little bit curious as to why they've done it. Obviously the cable is a little bit vulnerable. Maybe you could even say it adds a little bit of weight. Then the other thing we noticed is on this SL e-bike, the battery ran flat on a ride a couple of rides ago. So I had to pedal home with it turned off. Now that's not really a problem with an SL because they're quite light, but what that happened, because it ran out of power, made the rear derailleur run out of power, so it couldn't change gears. And that's one of the things with the normal SRAM cassettes like the Axis that we've noticed, we've never ever run out of power. There's all those sort of pre-warnings that are built in there, the beeps and the flashes and whatnot. So I'm not really sure why they've done that. I'm sure there's smarter minds out at play that have put this together and made it more e-bike compatible. But yeah, personally, probably just gonna be sticking with the Axis battery just because this is something we know and love, and we know, mate, you can ride your bike every single day and you're still only charging this thing every couple of months. Such an amazing design and bit of kit, and proven over years and years and years with the Axis battery. Wondering why they've gone to the option of having it run off an e-bike battery that could essentially run out. But hey, as I said, smarter minds than us at play here. So there you have it, guys. If you were a fan of the sound of the transmission drivetrains when they were launched earlier this year, but the price point was maybe holding you back a bit, excited to know that GX is now available. We're talking half to 2/3 the price in retail of those premiums. So very, very much lighter on the hip pocket. And right now, obviously, the cost of living is doing us all in. So yeah, new GX could definitely be worth taking a look at. Transmission Axis from SRAM.